Hello and welcome back to Android Stage. Our next talk will be by Andrea Falcone from Boston, USA, from Google. Before she starts, I just want to remind you that you can still join the games that our partners prepared for you, and you can win some interesting prizes or surprises. Also, after Andrea's talk, there will be lightning talks and the wrap up at the end, where Michal will draw the winners of the games. So please stay with us until the very end. So now let's get to Andrea. Her talk is about Android open source projects, how to contribute to them, and she will talk about which tools are important to use. And Andrea, the stage is yours. Welcome, enjoy your talk, and please, after your talk, join the 3D world and go to the speaker's corner. I'm sure that everybody has already found where the speaker corner is. Now is your time. Enjoy it and have fun.
Thank you. Awesome. I'm super excited to be here today. Yep, coming to you from Boston in the US. So it's morning for me, but good afternoon to most of you. So let's get my slides up on screen here. Fantastic. I'm going to be talking about contributing to the Android open source project today. If you want to follow along, a more complete set of these slides is available at the URL there. So goo.go contribute to Aosp. And all the details are in there. So really quick, a little bit about myself. My name is Andrea Falcone. I work for Google. I work on the Android Jetpack team, building out the infrastructure and the tooling so that we can release all of our Android libraries. Before working on Jetpack, I worked on other developer tools that you might be familiar with, things like Crashlytics, Fastlane, and Firebase. I'm super passionate about developer tools and bringing them to app devs like you. So let's get going. So I'm going to talk about what is Aosp and why would anyone even want to contribute? So Aosp is the people, the processes, the source code, everything that makes up Android. And there's not only the Android platform, but also all of the other pieces that go with it. So Android Studio, our Gradle plugins, and of course the Jetpack libraries. So let's talk a little about Jetpack and what is it. I think most Android app developers at this point know what Jetpack is, but it's a bunch of libraries that are unbundled from the platform that help you write high quality apps easy. A lot of them offer backward compatibility. So as the platform changes, we're able to make patches and to fix things up to make things easier for you as app developers. Jetpack uses Gradle and Kotlin, and so this is probably pretty familiar for most devs, and that's why I'm going to focus on contributing to Jetpack today because it's similar to how you're building apps already. So what does it mean to contribute? Well, it can be a lot of things, and I will show you ways that you can give to others or play a significant part in Aosp that might be surprising or different than you would have thought. So the overall process to contribute code to Aosp is first to find the right kind of bug to fix. Even if you're writing a new feature, you have to have a bug for it. And then you'll need to access the tools and the source code. And those tools, as you'll see, might be Git. They might be something that's called Repo. Then you'll need to make and test and upload the change. And I'll walk through these in details as well. And at the end, there's no profit, but we are really appreciative for any contributions that you make. So I mentioned that you'd need a bug in order to contribute code. So let's talk about bugs. All bugs, issues, feature requests are all filed in a tool called Issue Tracker. And you can use Issue Tracker to find specific bugs. For Jetpack, we have something called a bug bounty list that I'll talk about. And you can also track down known issues, things that are facing other people. And if you really can't find what you're looking for, you can file an awesome bug. So our bug bounty list is an issue tracker hot list, a group of issues that we'd really love help fixing from the community. And we're working to add more public bugs to this list, but you'll see that there are quite a few. There's feature requests, bugs, things that we think anybody could handle, maybe with a little help from a Googler. You'll need a sponsor in order to provide some background, context, and the code review, and any educational resources or materials necessary for you to understand and resolve that issue. And that's what we're here for. So at the URL on this page, you're able to find known issues for different components, certain libraries, Android Studio, and this will also help you report the bugs. If you do find an issue that you're facing, you can star it, and teams use the number of stars internally to really understand how important an issue is to our audience and which bugs should be addressed. So filing an accurate bug report is super important. The more details that you put, the better. So you can search for a particular component, and each component or library has a template that will have specific fields that are relevant to it. It's really important that you take the time to fill out these questions. And if you can provide a sample project, that is really helpful too. It shows that you're serious enough about the bug to spend time on it, which will allow a Googler to also spend time on it. And when you're filing a bug, you can also see recently filed issues in case someone else has already filed it. In which case, adding a star, leaving a comment is better because we know multiple people are facing the same issue. So I just want to say that your biggest contribution to Android might just be filing the best bugs, and that is okay. That is awesome. That is super helpful. If you leave here today and you don't ever write a line of code in Android, you'll still have contributed by filing great bugs that someone will fix. Okay, but can I code now? So let's talk specifically about contributing to Jetpack. Most of the Android platform is also possible to contribute to using the same tools, but Android X is easier, more accessible for Android app devs, and that's what I work on every day. So back to our process. First thing is to download the code. And we do that using a tool called Repo. Repo unifies Git repositories, performs upload to Garrett, which is our revision control system, and automates different parts of the Android development workflow. It doesn't replace Git, but sort of sits on top of it and makes Git easier to work with within the context of Android. So init repo will get you the latest version of the repo tool itself with its bug fixes, and you specify a URL, which is what code am I planning to download. Android Jetpack and Android Platform are both rather large repositories, so you only want to download the parts that you actually need to work on. So to download the Android source tree to your working directory, you use repo sync, so that brings the code down. And then the source files are located under their project names. The initial sync can take up to an hour. It's a lot of code, but then subsequent syncs will be much faster. And so then the real work happens before you actually upload the changes. We'll skip over the work for a minute and just talk about the process. So after the code is downloaded, you use repo start to make a new change, creates a branch, and switches over to that branch. So in this case, my branch is called new change. So at this point, you have the code and you're ready to explore and start making changes. And you should do this using Android Studio. There's a version of Android Studio that works best with the current code. And we have a script called, it's the Gradle W Studio task, which will open or install the appropriate version of Studio. This can be a little bit of a hurdle if you don't already have it because you're downloading a new version of Studio, but it's super important to keep the version up to date with the latest code. So Jetpack uses Gradle to build, so you'll notice some similarities with assemble and testing from your own app. And we also have a number of custom tasks that are part of the Android X plugin. Build on server is the main one, and this does everything. It will build literally every Jetpack library, check their API, create the reference docs for them. if you're using anything other than a machine with like 24 cores and 192 gigs of RAM, you'll notice that this build takes a long time. It takes about an hour on my MacBook. It's important to run build on server before committing the changes because you will find defects here. But run it, go get a snack. It takes a shorter amount of time on a super high-powered machine, maybe 10 minutes on my desktop, but you'll find me in the kitchen getting snacks pretty often these days. Instead of running everything, or in addition to running everything, you're able to run the per build tasks much more easily. So you can assemble and test View Pager 2, for example, like that, even from Studio. So the Jetpack repo comes with a number of sample apps that exercise the libraries, and it's a great way to test your changes. But you can also test the changes in your app, which is probably important because maybe that's where you found the bugs. So you can create an archive, which makes a Maven repo with all of the artifacts, and you run the create archive task to do that. You want to test the changes in your app, so you modify your build.gradle to point to that Maven repo. It's pretty straightforward. All right, so I've made a change and now I'm ready to upload it. So using git commands, I check the status, see what I've changed, and I add all the files and I commit with a commit message. So the next step is repo upload, but it fails. And there's several different hooks, things that need to be implemented prior to uploading. So you'll need a test stanza saying what you tested. You can use git commit amend to modify that. So here I'm saying I fixed a bug. I tested by running build on server. This is a tricky bit. You need to amend your commits when using repo. It's part of the Garrett workflow. Remote branches and separate commits on branches aren't part of the Garrett workflow. I know that that's sort of how everyone else uses Git. You'll get used to the workflow though. All right, so the change ID is added. There's a test stanza, and I fixed some check style issues, all the things that are necessary before the change goes up to be reviewed. And finally, I have created a CL. And so there's a link to it right there. That's kind of a lot. The barrier to entry is a little high with some of these tools, but I've got a few others that I think are going to be easier for folks to use. So, lengthy process. If you're going to make substantial functional changes, you really need the code to be checked out on your machine because you need to test it properly. But if you're going to be making simple, straightforward changes, you can use a web editor. So you can go to cs.android.com, which is our code search, and you're able to find code from here pretty quickly. Search is fast. You can find files, different text. You can show Git history and blame all through this UI. And from here, you can actually edit the code. So Android code search, you'll see a button that says edit code, and you click it, and you're taken to something called the Git source editor. Awesome. So let's give this a quick try. All right. So you modify the files. You can see the diff right here in the web. So let's take a look at what it looks like to make a simple change using code search and Git source editor. All right. So looking through the files, after clicking edit code, you can modify the code. You can make changes to multiple files and include them in the change. And then you click create change. You're given a description box. So this is where you put your commit message, make it detailed as possible, name the bug that you're fixing and how you tested it. And after you submit the change, you'll go over to Garrett, where you can start the code review process, just as if you had created it from command line tools. So that's pretty great. Definitely easier. Let's take a quick look at Garrett. So this is a web-based tool that we use for reviewing code. Regardless of whether you've created the change using repo or the Git source editor, you'll use Garrett to have your code reviewed and submitted. Aosp houses many projects and repositories, as I mentioned. So you'll see a lot of changes in Garrett, which we also call Android review. You'll see the repo and the branch that changes were made against. To the right is an array of different acronyms, and each of these stands for some prerequisite for each change. So you'll see something like code review, manual verification, open source licensing check, pre-submit testing. There's lots of checks that code goes through before it's actually merged. So this is a change that I made, and you can see there's some different prerequisites. There are reviewers, there are owners. It tells you if pre-submit is running or is ready. CLs need to be assigned to someone that will be able to review them appropriately. If you got one of those bounty bugs, you should be able to assign the CL to the sponsor. Otherwise, you'll use the code find owners button in Garrett to select 1 or 2 people. Don't pick more than 2, because if you do, then no one's going to look at it. If the people that you choose aren't the right ones, they'll make sure it gets to the correct people. Reviewers will indicate that your change is ready for pre-submit testing. They'll review the code and eventually submit the code change for you. And we have some internal guidelines that help us keep up with the reviews that come in. And it would be a good problem if we had more reviews from external contributors than we could possibly cover. And we can fix that problem when we get there. So eventually, you'll be able to merge your change. And it was, a little bit of a longer road than if you're used to using GitHub. But thanks for that contribution. So it's got to be an easier way, right? It seems like we could possibly be using GitHub here. So for the last 9 months or so, we've been experimenting with GitHub. So I showed you the official process and the lighter weight process, but this is the experimental process. So you can use GitHub. It's an early stage effort, and we hope that it'll make it easier to explore, experiment with, and contribute to Jetpack libraries. We're starting small. There's only a handful that are available for contributions, things like Room and Work Manager. You can use most of the local workflow that I described for building. So use Gradle W Studio, use Assemble, all of those things that I mentioned when I was talking about Repo. But you'll do code review through GitHub. So instead of the repo instructions, you'll just use git clone. It's pretty simple. All of the Jetpack libraries is still in one repository. Windows is unsupported. Just want to call that out here. So building on a Mac or Linux is the only way to make Jetpack changes right now. So I'll show you the pull request and code review model that we use in GitHub instead of Garrett. So this is an example that shows Yeet making a fix and requesting a review. And then RMS performs the review on GitHub, and Rahul approves the changes there. But behind the scenes, a tool called Capybara mirrors this GitHub PR into the Aosp Garrett, and a bot eventually closes the PR as it's merged into Aosp. So you're able to see the same code changes in both places, pre-submit testing, making sure that all the test run and the checks down, all that stuff actually happens in Garrett behind the scenes. But as a contributor through GitHub, you don't necessarily have to see all of that. We are using GitHub Workflow, though, which has enabled us to show the details of running the build. We've actually run the build twice, so it'll build over here in GitHub, and that has to succeed before the code is mirrored into Garrett. So once it's approved, it's mirrored into Garrett, where pre-submit is going to run and all the checks apply. So this is the Garrett version of that same PR from Yeet that I showed a few minutes ago. As an external contributor using GitHub for Room or for Work Manager changes, you shouldn't really need to interact with Garrett at all. The behind-the-scenes tool should take care of it. So once all of the Garrett changes and the GitHub checks pass, your change will be merged and then mirrored back. So congrats again, you landed another change in Aosp. Process is a little bit verbose using GitHub, but from your perspective as an external contributor, I think it works really well. And it also doesn't disrupt the internal development workflows for our tried and true testing infrastructure that we have in place. So that's pretty exciting. I think folks are really excited to contribute using this workflow. However, it's still an early stage effort, and we hope that we're going to make it easier to explore, experiment with, and contribute. There's going to be rough edges, and we'd really love your feedback on this process. So use issue tracker and the infrastructure GitHub component to tell us how we can improve. Where are the bugs? What's hard, and what could be better for you as an external contributor? So I've described several different ways that you can contribute to Aosp and the different tools that you can use, but we're always looking to improve. So you can see from the web editor and the GitHub that we're trying to make things better, and this is getting attention from our team. We acknowledge that there are still some problems with the workflow, and since giving this talk initially, we've ticked off some of the problems, things that people have run into, and it makes me really proud that we're able to continually make updates and get more external contributors. There's bugs filed internally, and teams are working on the remaining issues from this list. And hopefully in the future, I'll be able to tell you that we've checked them all off. So I first started talking about external contributors in Jetpack or Android X in 2018, and we've really increased the number of contributors since then. It was just a handful when I started talking, and we've really launched throughout the pandemic. The numbers have increased rapidly. I think part of it is because our tools have improved through the Git source editor and through GitHub, but I think contributing to Aosp during COVID makes a lot of sense. Some of us are finding ourselves with more time on our hands to tackle some of the things we've always wanted to try. We're looking for a distraction from our everyday, and some of us are still really trying to connect with the community who we can't see in person, who can't we be with personally, to find a way to connect. So I hope that for whatever reason you find yourself contributing to Aosp, you get what you need when you're there. Really excited to bring more folks in to fix the bugs that we've introduced. So yeah, I'm going to see you in the code. I can't wait to get feedback, especially after the talk from people who have tried. Maybe tell me how the tools are working for you or not working. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I saw that one of the bots or services in your presentation was called Copy Butter. I really had to laugh at that. Yeah. I take it personally. So thank you very much. And as you just said, I hope that there will be many attendees who want to talk to you and ask you questions. So meet them in the Speakers Corner in the 3D world. Thanks again. The talks, we are recording them and they will be available in a few weeks. Like people, if you missed any other talks, you can watch them later. But what you cannot do, again, are the discussions. So that's what we based mDevMeet this year on, is the networking and the discussions and the opportunity to talk to speakers in person, basically. So please, everybody, take this opportunity and go and talk to the speakers. I believe you can still find them in the 3D world even after their talks. So thanks, Andrea. Our attendees, you can still join the games, which are done by our partners. I would like to, at this moment, before we basically finish the Android stage, I would like to appreciate our partners. One of them is Confirmatic, which is this platform that you are in watching this. Maybe you know that we created Confirmatic last year when we did mDevCamp for the first time in an online version. And out of that, Confirmatic started to actually exist. and I think it's a nice platform. I hope that you enjoy it. Another partner is JetBrains, and then Kiwi and MSD, which are the two partners that created the games. And the last partner is SmartLook. So thank you for your support. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. After the discussion at 5 p.m., you will be able to join the lightning talks. They will be broadcast on all of the stages, so you can be at any of them. And after the lightning talks, Michal Schreil will draw the winners of the competitions, of the games. You can win some flight tickets and some other stuff. So please stay with us until the very end. And at this point, I would like to thank you for joining us at mDevMeet 2021, and hopefully see you in person next year in Prague. So enjoy and see you later.